Moo, this is Blake here, and welcome to my review of Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. For some reason, I always have difficulty remembering that subtitle, and I wish they just call it Mission Impossible 5, but the current trend in movie naming is to screw with the sequel titles as much as possible. At the absolute least, this isn't as convoluted as the Fast and the Furious franchise, where they would start naming off the sequels as Fast 5 or Furious 7 instead of just Fast and the Furious 5 or Fast and the Furious 7. I still think it's a missed opportunity that they did not call the sixth one and 6, but what can you do? So the funny thing about the Mission Impossible franchise is that all of the films are considered to be good. Sometimes they even go beyond that and end up being great. However, audiences generally cannot agree as to which is the best and which is the worst. I've heard arguments made for all of the films. So some might think that the first movie was the best for its intricate storyline, its suspense, its iconic moments, and others will hate it because they turned the protagonist from the TV show into the villain, and they might find that the story to be convoluted. But then people, when it comes to the second one, many prefer its more action-oriented approach, the over-the-top style action sequences, and others just feel that it's too absurd, that they preferred the more grounded in reality approach of the first film. So then they end up liking the third movie more, which was sort of a throwback to the first film in terms of its style, while others think that it's sort of bland in comparison, that not enough about it stands out. And then you have Ghost Protocol. And if there is a film that's generally more liked than the others, it's going to be Ghost Protocol, which somehow managed to be more epic, and yet at the same time it did have a pretty compelling storyline too. Of all those films, I definitely prefer Ghost Protocol. It just stood out the most to me. I love watching it. I just think it's a great action thriller. And it totally deserved appearing on my top 10 of its year list. But I've liked the others too. If I had to choose a least favorite, I'd probably go with 3. But it's still a solid flick. I can't really complain about it. Now, when it comes to Rogue Nation, it's also good, but I did think that it fell short of Ghost Protocol. There's not really a whole lot for me to say, though. And that's going to be very difficult for doing this video because it might be either really short or really long. You never know. The action scenes are really good. The stunt work is amazing. I was thinking, wow, the CGI with Tom Cruise on this plane, it's flawless. And then I found out that it wasn't really CGI, which seems incredibly careless on somebody's part, but still made for a great moment within this film that's full of great moments. But yeah, the action was exciting, nice choreography, there was a lot of suspense and tension. I thought that this film had a good balance of like espionage and intrigue and action. So I was satisfied on all levels. The humor was really good. I pretty much laughed whenever the movie wanted me to laugh. I liked the character writing for the most part. Benji has a much bigger role compared to the previous films, and I thought he was great. Simon Pegg just fits that role perfectly, and I could buy him in this situation too. He's not just the token comedic relief. He is very competent at his job. And then it's cool that Ving Rhames had an expanded role, considering he barely got a cameo last time, and he's a lot of fun as well. Jeremy Renner, he actually doesn't have as big of a role this time, but I thought the movie utilized him well. It made sense for him not to be quite as prominent in regards to the storyline. Now, Alec Baldwin plays the politician who's getting in their way. He disbands. He's the director of the CIA, and he gets the IMF disbanded. And therefore, he's also kind of an antagonist, even though he's technically not a bad guy. To be honest, I didn't really feel he was necessary. There are cool things they could have done with him, but the way it plays out, I just don't know if this movie really needed him. But Alec Baldwin still does good and everything. It's just we'll have to see, how he's used in the sequels. I suspect that he's probably not going to be a major player in this franchise, so that's a bit disappointing. But he didn't really take away from the movie. He just didn't really add a whole lot either. They could have easily just had this council disband the IMF, and the CIA. Yeah, they'll be hunting them, but they didn't really need that figurehead. I did think the film sort of fell short in regards to Ethan Hunt's characterization, but it's hard to say because they might just be, sowing the seeds for future sequels, because I liked the idea that maybe Ethan Hunt is losing his touch. Maybe, he only was so successful because of luck, and maybe he's pursuing this villain for more personal reasons that aren't the best reasons to be doing this. However, the film, even though they bring it up, they never really go anywhere with that idea, and you just get the impression that, yeah, Ethan Hunt is pretty much a man god, and he's always right, and everybody else is always wrong, and we were just looking too deeply into that. I personally feel that subsequent sequels should start presenting him as more cynical. Maybe he's going through the same experiences that previous villains in this franchise have gone through. Like, even the bad guy here, they say, he once worked for the government, but, eventually just kind of had a mental breakdown, and that's just what happens when you're on the field for that long. The protagonist from the TV show, he became a villain for the first movie. And, I never watched the original TV show, so I didn't feel that same hatred that many old school fans did. But, I still think that was an interesting storytelling decision, and I think it would be cool if Ethan Hunt starts going down that path, and maybe in the last movie of the franchise becomes the villain, but hopefully they have a more redemptive story arc there, to where maybe he pulls off a heroic sacrifice at the very end, or at the absolute least have him confront his demons, because Tom Cruise plays this role as if he is getting a little unhinged. So I'm not sure if I want to criticize this movie for not taking that further, or if it's going to make this movie look better in retrospect, as it's once again just planting that ideas within our heads, so hopefully that will be a bigger thing in subsequent movies. So we'll just have to see. In terms of the villain and the storyline, I thought the plot was good. Not spectacular, but not weak either. They play up the trailer how the villains are like the anti-IMF team. They've been trained just as the protagonists were, but really the film never plays that up too much. For the most part, it's just like the mind games between Ethan Hunt and the new villain. And I thought the new villain was great. He's portrayed to be just as smart, if not smarter, than Ethan Hunt. Incredibly ruthless. He, in a lot of ways, reminded me of the type of bad guy you see in a Bond film, like Dr. No. But at the same time, he's not campy. There is something genuinely unsettling about him. Actually, I was kind of wondering if this was him at first, but I realized pretty quickly it wasn't. He reminds me a lot of Tobin Bell from the Saw franchise, and just the way he speaks, and but the accent's a lot different, and but I still like it. I thought he was a pretty cool bad guy, and I'd be interesting to see if he returns in future sequels. The female character, because these films always have different female roles. What was her name again? I'm sorry. I know her character is called Ilsa Faust, I believe. But the actress is Rebecca Ferguson. She is awesome. I really liked this character. They added a whole lot of interesting quirks to her that just made her feel like a more well-rounded character instead of just being the static love interest or the femme fatale. and she's not even really the love interest. There's definitely some romantic tension there, but they don't really go too far with it, which I thought was smart because technically Tom Cruise still has a love interest, who never appears in this movie, by the way. But she's shown to be competent, deadly, yet really cool and badass. I thought her and this character, Faustin, Ethan Hunt, they worked really well together, and I really, really hope they bring her in the next movie. I hope she's not just one of those typical, once again, exchangeable female characters, because they, keep rotating him every film, but she really stood out. In a lot of ways, she even stole the show, so that they did her really well. Now, I felt like the directing, the editing, the cinematography, the choreography, it's all good stuff, but I thought Ghost Protocol was better in every regard. I just liked Ghost Protocol's visual style. I liked its, spectacle ideas more than what this film delivered. Even though this film still definitely delivered in those areas, it's almost like comparing Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, both of which I've done written reviews for, by the way, where it's like, it's hard to discuss Return of the Jedi because I think it's so inferior to Empire Strikes Back in terms of its visuals and its tone and so on. But Return of the Jedi is still good in those areas, so I shouldn't really be criticizing it. And I feel the same way with Rogue Nation. Good editing, good cinematography, good everything. Just Ghost Protocol did it better. There was something else I really feel like I needed to say, but I have totally blanked out. And that's going to drive me insane because I feel like it was pivotal. Slap my face. Jog that memory. Fuck. God damn it. I should have taken notes. I'm going to stop this video right now and we'll resume filming once it has come back up. So I'm sorry about this. Oh yeah, got it. One thing I did like about this movie is, and this sort of counterbalanced a problem I was having with it, because Ethan Hunt has become sort of a static character here. He's just as much as a prop as he is a character. But I love how this film actually kind of draws attention to his invincible man-god status. So we're, Faustus saying, describing this whole bit where they're going to have to go underwater, they have to hold their breath for a certain amount of minutes and do all this stuff and then get out. And she's describing it as if it's going to be the most difficult task ever, if not outright impossible. But then Benji, Simon Pegg's character, he's like, Ethan could take care of that. Yeah, he can do it easily. And then, Ethan Hunt's all, what? I can? And then Benji's like, yeah, you got it, no problem. And I just thought that was kind of funny. But then it actually leads to one of the most heartwarming and tear-jerking sequences of this entire franchise, where it goes wrong and Ethan Hunt nearly dies. You see parts of what happens in the trailers, and they even had that line, "You were just dead a couple of minutes ago." And what made it work was not just that Ethan Hunt did almost die and somebody had to save him, but Benji's reaction to seeing this. It's almost beautiful. He practically breaks down. He's like, oh my god. And I thought that was a surprisingly just heartwarming moment. It does remind you that, yeah, Ethan Hunt might be a man god, but he is still man, and he is just as he can die just like anybody else can. So I like that, but that is really all I have to say for this movie. I did not do a written review of this, but I have done written reviews of Pound of Flesh, which is a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie, his newest release. The Vatican Tapes, which I also did a vlog on, exorcism flick. Return of the Jedi, I've already said. Premature Burial, an old Roger Corman movie before Roger Corman became, Roger Corman. And Rabid, a David Cronenberg flick. So read all of those. Follow me on Twitter and Facebook. I just saw Alien Outpost, and I had intended on reviewing it, but it wasn't enough of a horror movie, so I'm going to probably release over the weekend like this page of just mini reviews that I've compiled. I've already kind of tested the waters with my David Cronenberg page, where I just talk about a bunch of his movies that I didn't feel needed the full written review treatment. So read all of that when it comes out. I have started production on Critiquing the Critics. If you have not heard, I've even gotten the Triforce parts done, and I've finished the script, so filming will probably take place in either a day or the following day. So hopefully that doesn't take very long, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys later.